Plot: Places in the Heart, 1984. Edna Spaulding finds herself alone and broke on a small farm in the midst of the Great Depression when her husband, the sheriff, is killed in an accident. A wandering black man, Moses, helps her to plant cotton to try and keep her farm and her kids together. She also takes on a blind boarder, Mr. Wool, who lost his sight in the First World War. She must endure storms and harsh labor to try and make her mortgage payment on time. Voiceover off.
When you're blind and watching movies, what will you find? A blind superhero whose superpowers are acting like he's not blind. A sighted actor over dramatically touching people's faces. Or maybe the whole joke is that they're bumping into different places. A spectacular, macular generation. Tunnel vision to your television. And do they off this movie with audio descriptions? They're movie buffs who know their stuff. You'll be thoroughly entertained. Join Sky and Melissa throughout film history and Citizen White Cane.
Hello.
Hi.
And welcome to Citizen White Cane, the only film podcast where neither host has seen the movie. My name is Sky McLeod.
I'm Melissa Bukta.
And we are talking about places in the heart.
Right. It was my week to pick the movie, and in the back of my head, I've always known that I really wanted to see this movie, but honestly, that came from the fact that Peter Capaldi talked about it.
Right. We should have previously on this podcast, because what happened was you mentioned it on the podcast not knowing what it's called, and then my dad sent me an email being like, this is what that movie is that Melissa was talking about on the podcast.
Yay. I mean, first of all, yay that Sky's dad is listening. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks,
Yay.
Dad. And then he knows blind. Actually, this movie does have a weird thing in common with my dad in that the blind character is named Will, which is the same name as my grandfather, my dad's dad, who is also a blind person. So
That is so cool.
very, I think, the character given the time frame would have been maybe 10 or 15 years older than my grandfather, but because it takes place during the Depression. But yeah, but I was like, oh, I wonder if that's because my dad was like, yeah, he plays a character named Mr. Will, and I'm like, you remember the name of this character? It's from a movie from 1984. So I was like, oh, right, it's probably because he remembered it's his dad is the same name and is also blind, so that's probably why he remembered. But yeah, sorry, that was an aside, but
That's okay. But yeah, I mean, long story short, Peter Capaldi and I were talking. Every time I say that sentence, I love it. Yes, Peter Capaldi and I were talking, and we were talking about him having to play. So this is when he was Doctor Who, and he had to play the Doctor as a blind person to infiltrate something, a monastery, I believe. And he had brought up the fact that he had talked to John Malkovich about being blind because John Malkovich played a blind man. And now we're here.
That's this movie.
Yeah.
Yes. How do we want to start? Should we, how do we feel?
That's a good place to start.
Yeah, I feel like we kind of informally usually start there. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To be honest, I'm really scared to talk about this movie. Having known next to nothing about it, except for that John Malkovich was in it and his character was blind. I got really nervous when I was searching for info about it, or just searching to find it on the internet, and a list came up entitled Ku Klux Klan movies. And that was a big red flag.
Oh my god.
We're gonna have to talk about some stuff, and we're gonna have to talk about some stuff. I guess that's a roundabout way of me saying, for the most part, I did like the movie. I think it's impeccably acted. I think everybody does a fantastic job.
Yeah.
The setting is amazing. I mean, it's so dirty. And it feels hot. You can feel the heat. You can feel the sweat. But
people wear too many long sleeves. It was actually bothering me.
So many long sleeves. Although Sally Field wears lots of short sleeve dresses, so she gets away with it.
Sometimes. So there was one. She's out in the fields at one point wearing a long sleeve thing, and I was like, oh my god, that seems horrible. But yeah. But anyway, yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I read into anything like I'll kind of touch upon the racial politics of any movie.
We have to. I mean, there's really no getting away with it. I was shocked at the inciting event that happens that kind of sets this whole story in motion. It was just really scary and terrifying, and it's amazing how much of today there is in this movie to talk about, because it's
sort of
because
the inciting incident, I mean, that's a good place to start, I guess, since it is at the beginning of the movie.
But to the short answer is I liked it. I liked the movie. I think the ending is shit, but I liked it.
Yeah, the ending's not very good. It kind of meanders a little bit, I think, too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, there's definitely there are whole storylines that I would love to just cut out of this movie because they go nowhere, and I don't understand why we have to care about these characters, but I'm sure we'll get there.
We'll get there. I did look up reviews because I was thinking that watching the movie, and then I looked up reviews. There was not a single one that did not say that. Like, they were all saying every single one. I was like, why do we have this?
I feel vindicated. Okay, good. But okay, that turning to you. I mean, your short answer. Did you like it? Was it an absolute slog to get through?
It wasn't a slug. When we did have those unnecessary plot points, a bit of me was like, okay, where are we in the timeline of the movie? Because some of that made it drag a little bit. But I do think that it wasn't. It was one of those where at the beginning, because of like the way movies were paced back then, and also the fact that movies are paced slightly differently than TV, like sometimes it always gets me a little bit of time where I have to like get into the movie, but then it was one that like once I had gone over that initial hump, I was engaged.
Very much so. I was never flat out bored.
Yeah,
I was always, even during the parts that I think could be excised from the movie, I was always interested.
I was just
in
I
what
was
was
truly
happening.
Confused. I actually had to look up what was happening online.
there were definitely a couple bits where I was like, okay, I don't know what's happening, but I think I'm going to figure it out if I just keep going, and I did for the most part.
There are like 4 white dudes that truly look exactly the same, and I truly cannot tell the difference between them.
Oh my God, thank you. Okay, thank you for bringing that up, because I was like, damn, they all look the same. They all have the same haircut.
Well, because like there's also like there's like 2 women and 2 guys that like, and there's an affair happening between the not couple, but I could not tell either the women or the men apart. So I was like, wait, which is this the one that's the affair? Like, it took me a while to even realize that an affair was happening, because it just kept being like 2 white people.
Yes, and then because there's this one scene that just kind of comes out of nowhere near the beginning of the movie, and it's just 2 people meeting and kissing in a decrepit house, and I'm like, what is going on?
There's like literally no context whatsoever to it.
I haven't locked onto the characters. I haven't gotten to know anybody yet, and I'm just like, I'm supposed to know, understand, and care. Right, because apparently that this is happening.
We've just seen the main character's husband die, so you're like, it's not the main character. Obviously, not only does she not look, but it's not the main guy.
And Sally Field has a very distinct voice, so it's not
right.
Sally
You can
Field.
tell when it's not. At least that is. I mean, all of the characters that the movie is truly about are distinctive. It's just all the other characters
the side
that we
characters,
don't need, that you can't tell apart.
Clue. Mm-hmm.
It's very bizarre that they even had most of that in it. Like when you have such a the other like plot thing I was thinking about so much is like, wow, this is like 84, like the contextual moment. It is like thinking that it was made at that time, and it's about the Great Depression. I was like, this is gonna be like a very basically problematic view on capitalism and like the American dream, and it was like, it is like very, like, we can talk about that as we go along, but I do think the implication of it is very problematic, but it is a very 80s kind of mentality of like, just put in a little bit of elbow grease and like try hard, and then you're gonna succeed.
Yeah, and that's an interesting way to look at that, because I actually hadn't thought about that in that structure. I kind of sort of took what happened as, obviously I couldn't believe it. Like, she's got, X amount of acres of cotton, a lot of cotton, and they're just going to pick it, and everything is going to be okay, and it all works out because it does all work. Spoilers, it all works out, which is great. I was really invested in that story, but I took it more as like, okay, I'm gonna just go on like fairy tale logic, or like parable logic or something.
Yeah, you both have to, but then it also is grounded enough. Like with Book of Eli, it worked because it is so ridiculous. But this is a true
super
time
grounded,
period.
yeah.
Absolutely nothing is fanciful and even remotely. Like it is all extremely grounded, and the era that it takes place in is using the historical aspects of that era as a driver for the story. So I mean, it is so grounded in reality.
Yeah, Danny Glover's character Moses comes along, and he's not treated as like the magical black person trope.
Right.
He's a real person. He helps. He has knowledge. You know.
He's like, it is it's kind of like a weird, it feels like sort of like a simulation-y kind of, I don't know. I mean, like it doesn't fit exactly in any boxes. Totally.
Well, and it's hard because I'm watching it and I'm like, okay, so is this a white savior story? Because it is kind of, but not really.
It's like kind of all the problematic tropes, but it never like really commits to one, and it's only like like light. It's like it's mostly water with like little dashes of like problematic trope in there.
Because I mean, yes, she helps him. Absolutely. She keeps him from getting probably murdered by the police.
Right.
Because in the beginning.
Steals spoons. We should...
Okay, let's back up.
Let's just back up.
We're jumping in,
but
let's...
We need a sound effect for when we're like, oh, it's the first 20 minutes of the podcast, and now somehow we're talking about like right before the climax. Yeah.
So, okay. So, yes. So her husband, Sally Field's husband, is killed by a
child.
Yes, by a literal, I'd say 14?
Yeah.
Maybe? Yeah.
Or young. Like he looks like very, very, very young. Like it is, when there's a close-up of him, because you first see him and it's like a very wide shot, so I couldn't literally see any aspect of him whatsoever.
He is at the railroad station at the train yard, and he's drunk, basically. Right. And the sheriff has been called in to deal with him. And it sounds like from the way that they have their conversation, the sheriff knows him.
Right, definitely.
And has probably dealt with him before, because he's a mischievous teenager, and he's just going to deal with the situation. Well, turns out Roy has a gun. And my heart dropped. I was really terrified.
Oh, really? Because we've been hearing the gunshots throughout the entire movie so far.
Right, but Roy has a gun. In the train yard.
Roy is not... I forgot all the characters' names. I'm so sorry. I mixed up the characters. So we have the kid... What is the kid's name?
Roy.
Oh, so it is Roy.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, because I just assumed the gunshot was whoever was... I assume when he left as the sheriff or whatever, like, that it was to go to the gunshots we kept hearing. So I just assumed whoever we were going to interact with had a gun.
Okay, I must have cut out the gunshots completely, because he's called to the train station to deal with a drunk person.
Right. But then they're like at dinner and they keep hearing gunshots. Maybe I'm just like paranoid about gunshots, so I'll notice a gunshot no matter what.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, well, the thing you constantly hear is a train at her house all the time. Train sounds all the time, because I guess they live super near the railroad yard.
I didn't notice that.
Oh God! In almost every single scene, there's a train whistle. It's crazy. I'm like, okay. By the seventh time, I was like, is this supposed to mean something? Because in every single scene, except for the tornado, you hear a train whistle.
That is so funny. I truly did not even notice. I forgot that there was any aspects of train
bonkers. So he's called down to the train yard to deal with this drunk kid who has a gun, and he's
shooting
drunk.
At the sky.
He's shooting at the sky, shooting at the trees or whatever. And the sheriff is like, "Okay, are you done?" And he's like, "Yeah."
Which was like the most shocking image to see now. Like a fucking white officer
I couldn't believe
not taking out a gun, and there's like a small child with an actual gun. Like the gun is not in the black child's hands.
Right.
Now.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, I'm surprised this kid isn't dead yet. Well,
yeah.
Unfortunately, Roy turns, and I think he must, in his beer-addled mind, he maybe thought the gun was empty or something, and it wasn't. And he shoots.
I guess he was just like drunk, so he like just points the gun.
Right.
Like it didn't seem like he did on purpose.
No, I honestly don't think there was any.
I mean, he definitely
intent.
didn't do it on purpose.
No.
I think it was like,
Well, the look on his face after this happens.
just, like,
So
shock.
he pulls the trigger and shoots the sheriff dead.
Yeah.
I mean, just kills him instantly, and he is he just, the camera just pans up, goes up to his face, and he's just, it's horrible. He knows he's gonna die.
yeah,
Like, there is no way he's coming out of this situation alive. He's going to be, well, there's not going to be a trial.
right,
He murdered him in their eyes. He
Yeah.
murdered him in cold blood.
right.
So we see two funerals happen. We see the sheriff's funeral, and we see
The little boy,
Roy's
Roy.
funeral, which is it was hard. It was really hard.
It also, I don't know. For me, I was just like, was this a thing that could ever, like, was this real in the 80s, or was this only just like Hollywood being made by white people?
Well,
like,
this
I don't
is,
know. It's
I
just
mean,
shocking.
but this is still a real thing. I mean, okay, so basically, it's hard for
Yeah.
me to even say it. They hang him.
Yeah,
That's how he died. Is they
right, but
they
they would
hung him. Lynch
in the-
is the better, yeah.
in the South. They'd lynch people for like just white women making up
Well,
stories.
look
Like,
at
it was
Emmett.
just-
Emmett. That's how Emmett Till died.
Right, like it's just I just now just seeing the idea of like, I just thought of like Tamir Rice or something, like the idea that they would be shooting the sheriff as opposed to like just being shot for like having like a toy gun, like it was just so different from like what makes any sense to me, given the fact that a lot of our gun laws, maybe the gun laws that have taken like reduced gun ownership in the black community, that they've been probably disproportionately affected the black community, because white people can still load up on guns as much as they want. So maybe, and I think that was in the 80s, so maybe that was like at a transitional time where like all the guns are being taken away from the black community, given to the white people, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it was so hard for me to compare this movie to the 80s and then compare it to now, because I wasn't alive. I
just hate the 80s, so I know like all the reasons to hate the 80s.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not my favorite decade either, but it's, and I'm not saying your comparisons aren't valid, because they absolutely are. I'm very interested to know how you're comparing this to the 80s. I can't do that. I find it harder to do that, but
it is a weird fascination of mine. I'm just like, I hate Ronald Reagan, and I have a lot of information on what was going on, and he is the 80s, like,
yes,
pretty much
no
the
doubt.
entire decade.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is, and this is like the center of his presidency.
But as far as like black people being hung and executed,
lynched. Well, that still happens today.
Lynched. That's still happening.
Yeah.
So that was just, it was just really hard, and I'm just like, oh, good, way to start off the movie, guys. That's
it is
great.
like it's a big swing for the beginning of the movie, especially. I don't know. It did really bother me that he was the one who shot the sheriff.
But I mean, it was an accident.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was definitely an accident.
I truly believe 100% it was an accident.
It's just like, to think about the things that happen today, it's just a shocking thing to see, like the idea that like, like the sheriff is not going to come in with like just ready to shoot if the kid starts running. Like, it was just shocking.
But if you remember, nobody had guns on. I mean, they had guns on.
Well,
them,
everyone had guns on them.
Nobody came in. They didn't come in guns drawn,
right,
ready to shoot on sight.
It's just so different from now, and I think that like it's probably some of this is because it was different in the 80s, and probably period specifically definitely different as well in the 30s. Like the power dynamics were like a different kind than they are now. So they took a different shape.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know, because people were still profiled and oppressed, and there was still a lot of racial tension.
There's a lot of racism shown in the movie.
Yes.
It was, it's definitely, Yeah, it's weird because it's like, I think it's because there's so many layers because it's a period piece. So what happened in the Great Depression? It was made in 84. So what was going on in the 80s? We look at it now with the like politics that we have, but we also have to think about the difference between the like movie industry and just, you know, media actually made by people of color, and like how the kind of Hollywood establishment and, you know, kind of the Academy Award movies, like how there's Crip Face. There's a lot of that kind of thing. You know, we talk about Crip Face on this podcast, but obviously there's similar problems about like how you portray Black people in movies. Like, so you have, and especially in the 80s, that was not something we were thinking about in the same way that it's trying to be thought about now, even though it's still a problem now. So, you know, there's just all these layers of like cascading effects of me that I'm thinking about, like, 'cause these are all things that I find very interesting, but it did at a certain point kind of overload my brain.
Yeah, no, oh, definitely. I after that, I was just kind of like, oh, joy, what have I gotten us into? I didn't think we were going to have this conversation.
I mean,
but there's no way we can talk about this movie and not have this conversation.
Definitely. We really like, I feel like we're on a roll with these. Because this is the third one in a row where we've been like, it was kind of weird racial stuff. We had to like, have to really get into it. But it would seem like the experience of watching this movie, you look at the time bar and you're like, wait, this has a blind character, right?
Oh, I know. Oh my God, I got really worried because I was thinking,
I was like,
oh
is there
no,
2 movies?
what have I done? Yeah, no, I was thinking to myself, what have I done? He's gonna come in the movie like for the last 5 minutes. That's not true. 40, I believe the timer was like 46 minutes when he actually shows up. So long story short, Sally Field is informed after the funeral by the bank manager that she has a loan obviously on their farm that her husband took out and was paying for. So she has a payment of $200, I can't remember the exact amount, but basically $200, which was amazing. I'm like, wow, in today's money though, that's probably $600 or $800 or something. But
though I think I think it was 120. I think she needed 200 to like pay rent.
Yes, to keep the farm.
But she
basically.
only had 127 in the bank. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So she is told that this is what it is. And, and of course, by this time she has kind of adopted Moses, who's Danny Glover's character.
Has she? I don't think she has yet.
Oh, no, you're right. No. I'm so sorry. Yes. Okay. So Moses, Danny Glover's character, has come to the house once asking for work.
Right, which we sort of talked about earlier.
Yeah. And he, chops some wood and she serves him food and da-da-da-da. And he's, looking for work, and she doesn't have anything to offer him. I was really surprised also that she just didn't start throwing things at this man. I mean, it was kind of amazing because a Black person killed her husband.
Right. And we see that the kid kind of has adopted some of that racism at the beginning. One of the older boy, whose name is Frank, yes. Mm-hmm. That there's that kind of association. I mean, that does make sense. I always didn't think she was going to be that man.
I was happy. I was very surprised, but I was happy that she wasn't racist, that we wouldn't have to deal with her being prejudiced and racist and awful.
There's a lot of plain racism bad. It's a very Hollywood thing.
Yes, yeah. Please don't be racist. It's not good. But basically,
she is a little white savior in that, and then she also is kind of like, a little harsh with him at the beginning of like, you can't come into the, kind of things that are a little bit more like white woman kind of problematic things. Yeah,
and so he decides to steal silver that she basically has left out
because she's like thrown him out when he like kind of was offering something that was reasonable. She needed some support, and he was saying like, I'll help you get the like grow cotton and just for like room and board, which was also like I don't know, we can talk about that later.
So she tosses him out and he steals the silver, and nighttime comes around, and the police officer, their family friend, brings Moses back to the house with the silver, and she has to make a choice. She can say, oh yes, he definitely stole it and he won't leave me alone and da da da, and Moses will probably die just like Roy did, if not worse.
Right.
And or she can save him.
Yeah.
And she chooses to save him.
Well, I think also, like, having the fact that her husband was just killed, like, she is now kind of in a position where she has less privilege than the average white woman who has a husband that can provide for the family. So I feel like that is, like, a period of time where probably your views would naturally be at a point of, like, seeing, like, a more, be not, like, I don't want to say, like, not racist, because that's wrong, but, like, it is a time where you're more looking at power dynamics because you're put in a position where the power dynamics that were working for you are now working against you, and, like, I think that, to me, that made perfect sense, that would be a time where you would change your opinion on those things if you had... Again, I don't want to say that it's, like, that solves racism, but, like... I think that it's just it's a self-reflection time when anytime you're like, you are just all of a sudden like super going through an extreme transition of like losing power in a situation. Like,
I think it was empathy. Mostly. I think she had an extreme, in that moment, she had an extreme amount of empathy for Moses' situation.
No, I don't know. I don't know if she did, because it is also like that's what she realized she needed him to keep the house.
That is true. Oh, no, absolutely. Because she realizes, oh, I have 30 acres of land that I could grow something on, cotton.
Right.
You know, and he'd already offered, you know, to work. So he was kind of in the right place and the wrong place at the same time.
Yeah.
So... she saves him. I would like to think that there's a tiny bit of empathy.
I mean, yeah, I think it's a movie from the 80s about the Depression, which were not exactly the most humanistic time periods in American history. So, you know, who knows? But like, but I think that you have it's set up so that all the characters do have like, I think how they have like one area where they're not privileged. Like you don't have like a black woman, you don't have like a blind woman, or you know, like it's all just like woman, that's not privileged. Black man, not privileged because he's black, and like blind man because you can't be two things. But you know, I think that it creates like a sort of, I mean, it is definitely an underdog story. It's also like, you cannot describe them as anything other than a motley crew, which like thinking about it, I was trying to think of the words to use, and I was like, well, motley crew, and I was like, how is another way to say that? And like every single description of the movie was like the motley crew. Like it's just it's what they are, I guess.
An unexpected gathering of people.
Yeah. And like people who in that society are not the ones who have the advantage. They're not the Ku Klux Klan that's lynching people.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, and Mrs. Spaulding is Sally Field's character's name,
right.
but I mean, Mrs. Spaulding, after she loses her husband, kind of has to realize that and sees the world, sees a little bit of the society of this town for what it is.
Yeah,
which is white and privileged, and as a woman, you know, this bank manager who's an asshole,
such a dick,
and he's trying to mansplain everything to her and doesn't think that she can do it, and that she has the strength.
Mansplaining.
Yeah,
and that's the other thing, you can't describe that as anything other than mansplaining.
Oh, it's mansplaining. Yeah. Well, I just felt so bad for her when she goes to the bank and she has to have him show her how to fill out a check. That hit me really hard, because I thought, oh my God, yes, because the man of the house does all that junk,
right?
And you as a woman would never learn anything like that.
Yeah, it is funny because I thought like, oh, can't people just learn how to write checks? Then I was like, yeah, when I was a kid, someone did show me. Like it wasn't a thing that I did just know instantly. I did have someone show me at one point, but part of that is because I can't read the words.
Right. Well, my mom showed me how to fill out a check when I got my bank account, because I couldn't have a debit card.
Right.
Until I showed I was responsible. And then I got a debit card and burned all my checks, because why?
But don't you have to pay rent with them? I've never like paid rent with anything other than checks in my whole life.
I pay my rent in cash. I prefer to pay my rent in cash. Anyway, yeah. So he begrudgingly shows her how to write a check, and she gets this idea in her head that she and Moses are going to plant this cotton and save the farm.
Right.
And as another idea to help her out, although I personally think he was trying to sabotage her in a way.
Yeah, definitely.
The bank manager brings a boarder to the house, which her house is so big and their farm is so big. I think having a boarder is a great idea.
Right. It's like Airbnb your house, dude. Yeah. Like, of course, that's a good idea.
That's one of the first sensible things that is brought up. I'm like, oh, God, yes, 100%, yes. But the boarder that is brought to her is Mr. Will, played by John Malkovich, who is blind. And it's
that Mr. Will is blind, not John Malkovich.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Will is blind.
What you said made sense. It was just in my ear. I was keep going. I
It's
think
okay.
most people know John Malkovich is not blind. But but yeah, so Mr. Will is blind, and I love how it's like he goes blind during World War I. So he is not someone who's born blind, which is always interesting. I feel like we always mention that in every episode, what if we find out which one, if someone's born blind or not. So that, like, some of the stupid sighted people stuff, I was like, okay, well, at least I can give it a little bit more credit.
Yeah, it totally, because he's looking at people directly most of the time when he is talking to somebody, and I'm like, oh, okay, but that's probably a holdover from his sighted days.
Yeah, there's like a few times where he does look at people. There's sometimes he's like, when he's moving, I think he's better at the eye lines. But when he's like talking to someone and sitting down, he's more likely to look at them, which, yeah, I mean, maybe because like I'll do that just to make people not get stressed out, because it looks like I'm paying attention to them. So even though it doesn't help me at all, it's not like I'm seeing them, it just helps the conversation flow better. So maybe could do that. The one problem is he still has to guess, because the assumption is he has no vision whatsoever. So he's supposed to figure out where they are even to do that fully, because he's not going to have an exact sense of where they are. But I don't know, I guess you can have pretty close to a sense of where they are. But so
she begrudgingly takes him in, and of course he informs her, I don't want to be here just as much as you want me here, but it was either this or a home.
Yeah.
And that just scares me. I don't think we have time to get into the full topic, but just the treatment of disabled people. Basically, you just ship them off to the home, the home for the mentally unstable folks, or the mentally challenged folks. And even though Mr. Will is completely in his right mind, has mastery over all of his faculties, he doesn't need to go
like
there.
No one really needs to go to those places.
Correct.
It's truly like, you give, people are gonna fly as big as their pen. I don't know.
No.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
The state of the system is
really problematic.
And it was even worse in the 1930s.
Yeah, and worse in the 80s, sort of. I mean, I think that like what's getting better is that people are starting to feel like this shouldn't really be a thing.
Oh yeah, these people who we shut out from society, they're people, guys.
Right,
Hello.
and maybe like shutting them out from society is not helping anyone, and definitely not helping them. And like the fact that so many of them have get into these like abuse. There's just all these abuse allegations, and then a lot of times, which is the most horrific thing, is like nothing comes of them, but like everyone knows that there's abuse allegations, and so many of them that you're like, I don't know, so much of a system is like abuse. It's so fucking common for abuse to exist, and like what is like, we need to really know that we need this system before we let it. I don't know, a lot of problems with it, but yeah.
Well, I mean, I definitely don't want to see Mr. Will go to a home. That would be sad. And luckily he doesn't, because he ends up staying at Mrs. Spaulding's house.
Right.
And she takes him on as her boarder, and he can provide a little bit of money to help her pay the rent, and he makes chairs, which I thought was a really cool aspect of his character.
Someone who does something.
He contributes to society.
Well, you look at that, a blind person capable of doing stuff.
I know, what? And the chairs that he's constantly making look pretty cool.
Yeah.
They look like fine, sturdy chairs.
It is. It's always so weird. Like, what do people think that blind people can't do? It is. I'm always like, what are you picturing that we're so incapable of doing?
Well,
Exactly.
also kudos to John Malkovich. I mean, he makes these chairs. He's seen shelling green beans in another scene. He is helping out in the kitchen. He's cooking. Taking things out, cooking things, making sure the food is the way it should be. And I mean, he's doing all of this without looking at things. He's
but those things like you can do without looking.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Yeah.
But that's the cool part of it.
Yeah. He was incredibly comfortable.
Yeah.
Not looking at anything. He just felt very natural. His performance is just incredibly natural.
Yeah. Well, and then it's also nice that they just gave him anything to do, because you have the implication of having a blind character is incapable. What I think is kind of funny is I guess he does some of the almost the traditionally feminine jobs. I mean, I don't know if chair making would really qualify, but it's his work. It doesn't fit fully always into the bootstrapping plot. Like, it's always a little bit to the side of the bootstrapping plot of the cotton fields mission to pick cotton, and then he'll just because he's cooking, making chairs, it's not really specific. I was kind of expecting him to have a certain thing that was his thing within this greater goal, but they didn't really have that. It wasn't as concrete as that. It was just really we have Mose is the one who actually has true skills that he's bringing to the table, and true knowledge that seems to be very helpful in their greater mission, and then the rest is determination on the part of Sally Fields' character, who's Miss Spaulding, and then we have Will, who is just kind of just doing stuff around the house.
But he's contributing in his own way. I mean, if he would have been, and he goes to the cotton fields. I don't think you ever see him actually physically pick the cotton, but he's there.
It's unclear, if that is what doing is contributing,
doing whatever his job is, even if his job is just to provide chatter, to keep everything going. I mean, at one point he brings his record player with his recordings for the blind, which I was so excited. I was like, that is so cool, because I did not have a record player that did that, but I had talking books for the blind. Nice. And I'm not sure if it became the same big thing.
Well, yeah, the thing that was annoying me though is that he was playing it on such a slow speed. It was just I'm like, this is movie logic. No well-respected blind person would be listening to something so slow.
I mean, if you speed up a record player, it gets really hard to understand. It depends on the quality of the recording of the record.
But that's what my grandfather would always do. It's speed things up so that it was so quick that you could understand it. I have a good record playing blind person example, and I know that you could do that, which is why I'm all self-respecting blind people. This is just so unrealistic. You would definitely have it on a faster speed. But whatever, movie people can't understand it if it's so slow. Or so fast.
Exactly. And speaking of records, the kids sneak into his room when he first moves in, and they I don't know why they're so fascinated by this talking books for the blind thing.
Yeah, they're really excited about it for some reason.
Yeah, but they listen to it and get spooked, and in doing so, they scratch the record.
Well, because Miss Sally Fields, did she have a first name in the movie?
Yes, and I think they say it once.
Yeah, it's not said a lot. But
she is Miss Spaulding.
Miss Spaulding, and she calls them to dinner,
right? Which
and that's
spooks
why
them.
They freak out and are like, "Oh, we gotta go," because they're not allowed to be in Mr. Will's room,
right.
So they already know that they're breaking the rule. Not just because they're playing the record player, but they're just not supposed to be there at all. So
right, and I'm saying all of this because there's and this is just crazy that this keeps happening. There's a scene where he goes to confront Miss Spaulding, and she's just trying to chill and take a bath after a long ass day.
Yeah.
So we have yet another scene with a blind person.
Here, actually.
Oh, good. I thought you'd pull this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is when we have Sally Fields is actually in the bath, and we have Mr. Will,
Who comes to confront her about the record.
yeah, and he just like runs in, and the assumption, I guess, even though you can hear the splashing, is that he doesn't realize she's in the bath.
Yeah, I guess not.
Like he seems like he's like can hear things most of the time, but I don't know. But here is that confrontation.
Mrs. Spaulding?
Yes, Mr. Will, I'm right here.
Mrs. Spaulding, believe me, if I had any place else to go tonight besides the state home for the infirm, I would gladly leave right now. Now, when I came here, all I asked was to be left alone. I am not some kind of freak that is here on display for the amusement of those hooligans you call children, and I
What?
will not have them vandalizing my
Wait a
personal
minute, now wait a
property.
minute. I will not have you come in my
Look
house
at
and
this.
talk about my
It's
children
rude.
like that. They are not hooligans and they are not vandals. They are well brought up children. You can't just walk into my house.
Fine.
He splashes the water. And then realizes.
Fine. Whatever they are, you just keep them out of my room.
And then he
That's all right, I'll get that.
falls into something, and here, I'll cut it there, but she's like, oh, the door is on the left.
Right, and he finds his way to the door.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose we have to start somewhere because that makes the scene where he actually saves the little girl in the tornado more worthwhile. I mean, makes it have more weight because
Right.
he truly does come to love the family.
Yeah. Also, hooligans is such an adorable thing, and I love
Hooligans is
how
a
offended
great
she gets.
word. Yeah.
I feel like hooligans is one of those words that's lost a lot of menace over time. Like, it is very, it feels very silly now, so I can't imagine saying it with a straight face. I just love that that's like the one, the people are throwing around the N-word all the time, but that's the word she's like, oh,
She
hooligans.
freaks out. Yeah. Yeah. How dare you? Yeah.
It's like the least.
Also, I mean, oh my God, John Malkovich is one of those actors who has such an interesting voice to me. Just
Yeah.
always he's a beautiful voice, but he speaks in almost a monotone, but
It's very
but it's
monotone.
not a monotone. It's so hard to describe. He's one of those
Yeah.
people I'd listen to him read the phone book.
Yeah,
She's so interesting sounding.
It's true. It does feel sort of monotone, but then but it's not that he doesn't emote with his inflections. It's more just like almost the pacing is very even,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of fun. I mean, it does sort of work with the blind character. I don't know. I feel like, for some reason it kind of felt like it fit in with him being blind. Like it worked with that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, and he wasn't, I mean, at the first scene we see him, he's like says nothing for so long. And so I was like, they know this is a blind character, right? Blind people talk. Like he's just sitting there quietly for a good 7 minutes.
Right.
I mean,
Well, and
I
they
don't know, that's probably
they do
exaggeration.
that fantastic thing that my parents still do to me, and it drives me up the fucking wall. They talk about him as though he's not
Right.
there. He's always talked about in the third person.
Yeah.
and you're never addressing that person, and it's like, I'm right here,
And I
I'm
think
right
that's his
here.
first line in the movie.
Yes,
isn't
I
it?
believe so. Yeah,
Yeah.
Something along those lines. He
like
calls them out on it, which I'm like, yes, please.
Like he's
yes, do that.
sitting here, so one of those.
Yeah, he's sitting right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I almost forgot it was John Malkovich until he opened his mouth and spoke, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's him immediately.
His hair is also so distinctive, and he's wearing a hat at the beginning too. Mm-hmm. So yeah. But yeah, it is kind of weird to meet a blind character. And this is the second time we've had a blind character just being dropped off at someone's house in the last few weeks.
Oh, and another time, the whole reason I wanted to bring up that scene is another time where we have a blind character and the site who's just naked.
There's a naked woman and a
Yeah.
blind man, and
I'm
that's
like,
the whole
this
thing.
is a thing. This is so weird. Yeah.
We're really getting into. I feel like there's some blind tropes that I feel like only by doing this podcast can we ever uncover like some weird, just random things. That is so weird. Why don't we have that? Like, In the Dark should have that in the reverse, right? But it does. It kind of doesn't.
I know, right? No, that's never been done.
Yeah, that's never done in the Dark. What is
maybe,
this?
Maybe it will be. We just haven't gotten there yet. I don't know.
I mean, not really. It's almost like they do the opposite. It is.
Because the blind writers on that show aren't stupid.
But it would be more fun if the genders were reversed. Mm-hmm. Or not genders. What am I saying? It would be more fun if it was like, I mean, I guess gender roles. I mean, we're all, I guess all the characters that we're probably talking about, especially in the two movies, this movie and Treasure Blind, they're all cis characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But although, didn't you?
No, not Treasure Blind. Sorry, we were talking about Blind. It was the other thing.
Yeah,
Treasure Blind. Why do they all have blind in them too?
It's confusing. Although, honestly, I would bet you.
Blind dating.
Yeah, I would bet you dollars to donuts that Mr. Will is like I honestly think he's gay, or he had the potential to be gay. He
definitely seems like he is. Yeah, or
I really thought he was.
Yeah, he's kind of like it's kind of like I feel like it's more quintessentially an aunt thing, like the queer aunt.
Yes.
Spinster aunt. That's why don't we have one of those? I guess it's like half that for the uncle, but that's not as much of a thing.
Well, he's not seen as a character that could,
bisexual.
Exactly. Bisexual. He's just he's just there and he's happy making his chairs and cooking the food. And
there aren't a lot of characters where they're it's not a very, like, the sexuality is all in the dumb B plot that we don't care about.
The sexuality is not what this movie wants to talk about, and I'm fine with that. I'm just saying, like, as an observation.
Right. We have a bunch of characters that get, like, problematic sexual things overlaid onto them unfairly. Like, all of the characters are the three, main characters of the Motley Crew. They're all, like, groups of people. They are part of groups of people that have been given like problematic sexual. I mean, I can't really say anything because it's all different, like women get objectified, and like being a black man, you're going to be
objectified.
You're going to be objectified now, and then you're also like seen as a threat as well. Like that's another. Well, it's like one or the other, I guess. And women, I guess it's all complicated.
A threat. You're seen as a threat, but you're also seen as inferior.
Yeah,
which is just. That gets me. It's so weird. And then you have the blind person who's infantilized.
Yes, exactly.
Or can be.
Yeah. But it's all kind of problematic.
Mm-hmm. But I like the way that this seamless family comes together because nobody has to, Will at least, nobody has to prove why they should be there.
Yeah, I guess Mr. Will sort of does, just in that he's.
I
mean, but just in that neither of them want it, so it's not like he's being put upon to like prove his worth or anything. It's just like it's just kind of like a abled white man, saying I'm gonna decide what's best for all you people. It's one of those scenarios which isn't as problematic as making the disabled person prove their worth. Like that'd be more problematic. But
I mean, and I'm not gonna lie, like it felt very homey to spend time with Mrs. Spaulding and her kind of gang of misfits.
Yeah,
or her gang isn't the right word, but family. Her family of misfits.
Yeah, it is fun because that's definitely like a good would it be serotonin? No, I don't know. For me, I always like appreciate that. It's always just very fun to watch that kind of movie. It weirdly almost didn't feel like it fully got to like put the hitting those pleasure centers entirely. Like it was always just kind of like skirting the like really fun aspects of that.
Because there was all this other garbage that we had to deal with. We might as well just mention it now. So there's her sister also, Miss Spaulding's sister also lives in town, Margaret. And she's friends with, and her husband, and she's friends with Violet and her husband. And there's this whole like crazy affair going on between the four of these people.
Right.
And this is a whole plot, and it goes nowhere, and it's boring, and I don't care.
And it's like we were saying at the beginning, very hard to follow.
It's
I mean,
so
I feel
hard to
like we
follow.
kind of don't even need to talk about it at
No,
all.
I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
I don't care because I checked out during those parts of the movie. I did not care.
Yeah, it doesn't, and there's not a lot of connective tissue. Like you're always like waiting for it to be super relevant to the other plot, and it just never does.
There's no connective tissue. The only thing
is the sister.
right? Is the sister? That's the only thing that connects them together. That's it. And I don't understand why it's there and why we had to spend so much time on it. And it's stupid when I want to watch this incredibly compelling story about these three people who've been kind of thrust together and are trying to save Mrs. Spaulding's farm.
Right. Yeah, it is kind of interesting because if you cut all that out, though, I mean, it's a sort of long movie. I mean, you technically could have a theatrical release, like, length of a movie if you just cut out that entire subplot. I think, I mean, I don't know for sure, but it feels like you would probably still have a feature running time with that. If you cut it all out. So part of me, but I guess it would be like still probably like 120 or an hour and 20 minutes.
It's going to be a long movie no matter what you do. Because it's a long movie.
Well, if you cut out that entire subplot, I bet you could get it down to like an hour and a half. But like, so which is like, you know, that works. I think there's also like, I don't know. I did kind of feel like the main plot, I was trying to figure out if it was missing something.
Oh,
like,
I can tell you what it's missing. A fucking ending. That's what it's missing. The movie solves all of these problems for the most part. It creates one major problem, and then it solves all of the problems, or does it? ? And then it ends. It just ends. It's done.
Well, we have like that. It creates a problem of racism at the end, also.
Right. Okay. So the cotton has been harvested, and Sally Field, to her credit, has gotten down there with the best of them and has run herself ragged, and is harvesting this cotton. The kids are doing it. Moses is doing it, and I mean, he's hired some hands to help do it, and yeah.
Can I just say, you get like you're like, we need to get workers really bad. We have no money, so let's get a bunch of black people to come pick cotton, like see if we can pay them anything, which is a problem, and then we'll also have our children do it. Like when you really sit down and think about that entire aspect of it, like they do pay the laborers, but it's like the idea is like, oh, if only we didn't have to pay them because that costs money.
I didn't get that. That's interesting. I didn't get that at all.
Well, I mean, it's they don't say like, they're not saying like the problem is that we have to pay them, but the thing is that they're like one of the plot problems is that they do have to pay them. You know, like their problem would be solved if they didn't have to pay the people who are working in the cotton fields.
If they didn't pay them, they would be slaves.
Well, that's my point. It's like it just feels like part of the movie is like the implication is if only we had slavery, then the entire plot would be solved and we would be and everyone in this movie would be happy. Like it does kind of imply that when you think about it for like more than a minute.
Okay, when you think about it, but I absolutely do not think that's implied at all. I
don't think they think it's implied.
No,
I got that though.
Okay, that's fine. I did not, but because she wants to pay these men and women, and I think she's going to make good on it.
She does want to pay them, and it isn't that she doesn't pay them. And it's not, I don't think that the characters are saying that. I think more from the meta level of thinking about the plot of the movie, you've created a problem that basically, like literal slavery, like technically solved the problem of your movie, like quote unquote.
Yeah, I mean, yes. And see, and that's where it gets hard, because that's where you step into the white savior territory. Because I mean, she serves them all breakfast. She's going to pay them. She gets down on her hands, and I think the only reason why this kind of sort of works and isn't just a movie like The Help, where it is a white savior story. I mean, that movie is all about a white savior, is because she gets down on her hands and knees and works herself raw, and her children do the same thing. She wants
like,
this,
again, child labor is
I know,
also.
I know. But they're gonna lose their house, Sky. Come on.
Well, I know, but that's like, but it is kind of like, I think what the problem I have with it is the 80s Ronald Reagan bootstrapping thing, because it's like the bootstrapping narrative. If you think about it harder, it's like, yeah, you're right. Slavery and child labor does solve the problem. You know, it makes it easier to bootstrap.
It's the American dream. If you, because she's like, we're gonna do this. We're gonna start a farm. We're gonna plant cotton. We're gonna harvest that cotton. Profit. It's like it's the American dream, and it's basically saying, oh, no matter what, the American dream will work. Even in the Great Depression, the American dream still prevailed. Well, we all know, especially today, the American dream is bullshit.
Right. And in the Great Depression, like, yeah, the movie is also pretty unrealistic. That's like, because they keep being like, people who have been growing cotton for a very long time have had to sell their farm. People who, like, the husband is working all the time have had to, like, their house has gone into foreclosure.
Right. Moses,
like, how are you going to do this?
Yeah.
And it's never really explained how she's going to do it.
Moses needs Miss Spaulding, because Moses can't just say, I want to buy a farm and I want to buy cottonseed and I want to make my own business. That's because Moses, because of the color of his skin, doesn't have access to the American dream. Right. He has to get it through Miss Spaulding. Now, granted, they become friends and family, and I honestly thought they were gonna fall in love, but they didn't. I was pleasantly surprised.
Well, yeah, I mean, I did not think that.
I really thought that she was gonna fall for him or Will. I wasn't sure. But
no, this is the 80s. You can't have first of all, blind person's not sexual, and a multiracial couple not happening in an Oscar, film.
No, that wasn't the story that they wanted to tell. But I mean, it's
not the story Hollywood wants to tell.
That is true.
I mean, I guess we have watched movies where blind characters fall in love, but it's like Mr. Will is so obviously not supposed to play that in this movie. And Hollywood, especially like Oscar movies, I'm like especially like hard on them because they've been historically really ableist. They tend to not even like part of like, oh God, yeah, movies that are just like, oh, it's a burden, like, disability is a burden on people, but good abled people will look past that, or I don't know. Yeah, it's not that, but he's also not a character that is as integral to the plot. Like, it's also like he doesn't do enough that makes him need to function other than obviously he's paying money to live there.
Yes, that's true. But I mean, he ends up saving Possum in the tornado.
That's true. Right. That's the moment where we're like, he has a purpose.
Right. Well, that, and he, oh my gosh. So after they and I know we're kind of skipping over the tornado, but it's a plot point. It isn't really their house. That's all you have to know. Their house is fine.
He saves
and he
the
saves
kid
the little girl.
Yeah.
Which is really cool because it's kind of a harrowing scene, but he does it, and she has to help him down the stairs, and it's great. And they make it to the storm cellar. The other thing that he does, one other major thing, is he saves Moses from the Klan. So the cotton has been harvested. Everything is great. And
funny you'd mention that.
Yeah. Oh, good. Oh, you're perfect. Yeah. We have a clip.
I had to do a little bit of cutting it, just because there are a few moments where you have a bunch of silence and you kind of have to navigate around that a little bit. So it's it might be a little choppy, but I was I don't want to play something that's 3 minutes long.
Right. Right.
But this is we've already had a scene where the two of them are in the shed.
They were working on stuff.
Right. Yeah, and then Mr. Will, I think it's Mr. Will, I'm just going to say Mr. every time, hears something, and Moses is like, what? I didn't hear anything. And you're like, this is a blind character, so obviously something is going on outside, but also I was like, I'm a blind person, and the Foley person forgot to do any sound effects because there's literally none.
Okay, good. I'm glad I wasn't the only one, because I was like, wait a minute, I respect that his hearing is very sensitive.
Yeah, but I'm also blind.
I didn't hear anything. What is going on? Yeah, I mean, are blind people just real good at sensing Klan members? Is that a skill that we have that I didn't know about?
Yeah, I think so. And I guess the fact that they're beating him up is why.
That's
John
why
Malkovich knows.
Yes, because
Klan members.
And he hears Moses screaming because he's getting beaten up.
Yeah.
Mose,
Keep out of this, Mr. Will. This ain't none of your business.
You move away from him right now.
Put that thing away, Mr. Will, before you hurt somebody. God damn.
Now.
And they grab things from the floor and throw them.
Yeah, they figure out that he's, well, not figure out, they know he's blind. So they're going to pull the wool over his eyes.
Right.
And he starts shooting in random directions.
Right, wherever they put the thing.
Hold it, Mr. Will. We don't have any quarrel with you.
Mr. Thompson, why are you doing this to him?
You got the wrong man, Mr. Will. That ain't Thompson.
That's Mr. Thompson. I've been selling him brooms for years. As sure as you're Mr. Shaw. And that's Mr. Simmons over there by the barn.
All right, boys, let's us going home.
So funny.
I would have cheered out loud if I could have, but it was really late last night when I was watching this and my housemate was asleep. But I was so happy. Like, of course, this town is so tiny. Everybody
course you can
knows
recognize
everybody.
them.
Yeah.
Which, okay,
Yeah.
so a few things. First of all, are society people really that dumb that they can't recognize people's voices? I've always wondered about that with the Ku Klux Klan. It's like, really, is that enough to hide? It feels like voices. I guess maybe it's a blind person thing.
Well,
but-
they're not focused. I mean, they probably think that, you know, Mr. Will is blind and inferior, and he would never have come out there to try and rescue Moses. But also, they're not thinking like a blind person. You know, if you're trying to disguise yourself from a blind person, who cares what you're wearing? You have to disguise
your voice.
Your voice,
Right, of course.
And they're not going to do that.
Right, which is, I mean, but I'm always just like, I guess, I mean, I think it's probably true that sighted people can't recognize voices as well, but I'm always just like, why? You can still hear.
I don't know. I wouldn't say that like all sighted people can't recognize voices as good as a blind person, but I think blind people have,
I think we
have
just
an
might
advantage.
be better because we're,
Yeah.
I mean, that's true. We do have an advantage because it is just more, it's just more relevant. We just need to be able to do that because that's how we recognize people at all. So, you know, it's important to have that skill. But that's just the thing with the Ku Klux Klan I've never understood, because just as a blind person, I'm like, yeah, you're just covering your face. But then the other thing on top of that is like, yeah, but like in the South, there's like, you know, the sheriff. I mean, I guess maybe not this sheriff, but like most of the time, the police force and the judges. And like, you know, if you want to find some of the Ku Klux Klan in that era, like especially, but like also it's probably still today
they're
in some
around.
parts of the South. Like,
they're around.
They're just the people in power, basically. So it's not like they're hiding that much.
I just love that they give up so easily.
that's-
They're like,
that is what bothers me.
fuck, he knows. Oh no, he knows where we are. Bye. We're gonna go home.
the
We're not-
idea that was enough. It was so
it's great. I loved it. I loved it because once you take the identity, once you know who's under that stupid costume, they have no power. They have no power.
They're like they're the cops and the judges.
I know. So that's hard because there's probably nothing. We don't know how this plot thread ends because there's probably nothing Mr. Will can do to go up against these people because they are the authority figures. But
right, but in this world, apparently there is, like, by knowing them, which is also because we do have Mose leaves.
yeah, Mose decides that he doesn't want to bring any more trouble, and he leaves. He decides to leave the family. But okay, also here's the thing. This is something I should have brought up a while ago, but I didn't. She has him living in the shed, which he has refurbished and like made livable.
Right.
But she has him living in the shed next to the barn the whole time that he's with her. And I'm like, he is the reason why you have your house, why you have everything that you have. You can't give him a fucking bed in your house. What even is that?
He's like,
he's not your
doing
slave.
a lot of work for her, and I don't know what the arrangement is in the end, but like at the beginning he was like, I'll help you out for room and board.
Right, but room and board in her house. I mean,
Well,
no,
I think the implication was not, because I think he at the beginning is the one who says there's a shed. He's like, I would stay in the shed. I thought that was like his idea before she invites him to stay.
She brings up the shed. That was this is
maybe.
after. Oops, damn it. This was after that she says that he can stay. She brings up the shed. There's a shed behind the barn. I don't.
He seems awfully like.
I mean, and maybe this was
gung-ho.
yeah, and maybe this was she was still mad at him because he stole from her. I mean, she does say, if you ever steal from me again, I'll shoot you myself.
The power dynamics are like, I don't know, a lot of things in the movie. It's like, it seems inspirational, but then like if you pause it and think for 30 seconds, you're like, this is kind of problematic.
Yeah, I mean, what does Moses get out of this? Nothing.
Nothing. And then he has to leave because he's like scared he's gonna die.
Right. He leaves with nothing.
Right.
I mean, I think she tries to give him money and he won't take it. But
yeah, this is so the 80s. Like it is actually truly problematic. Like capitalism is a fucked up thing, and like the movie industry, like actually I feel like owes us a lot more like actually thinking about how problematic capitalism is, and this movie does none of that. It's like, yeah, go capitalism. Everyone loves it.
But yeah, and then the movie just ends.
Yes.
The couple that said they were gonna move out of town moves out of town, and this last scene of the movie is all of them in church, and we realize, because it kind of threw me for a loop for a split second, but we realize that Miss Spaulding, her two children, and Mr. Will are all in church, but you see that Moses, Danny Glover's character, her husband, and Roy, the boy that was killed, the two of them that were killed at the beginning of the movie, are also there.
Right.
And the last shot of the film is we pan over to them in the church pew, and they smile.
I feel like we're really
the movie
using
ends.
your Christianity knowledge in the last few weeks because I'm gonna send it over to Melissa's Christian Corner. Do you want to give any context to this?
Well, if you think about communion in the scene, I mean, communion, you're accepting the blood and body of Jesus, and you are being forgiven for your sins.
Yeah.
In church. So we see this whole town, and I can't recognize anybody's faces except for our main characters. But we see the church, and I'm assuming everybody who's in the town is in this church. Clan members, not clan members,
right.
they're all there, and they're all taking this holy sacrament. They're all being, all of their sins are being washed away. They're all repenting.
That's a good moral. It's like the Ku Klux Klan, they should be able to exist equally as black people that are also like technically dead.
Wow.
And they should all be just have no sins whatsoever, because why would you have sins in the Ku Klux Klan?
Yeah, I think I think the more general moral is we're all human, we're all people, we're all one people under the same roof, and when you look at it, all of our struggles are human struggles, and all of our pain is human pain. And yeah, I know it's bullshit, and it's a terrible ending. Nothing is resolved.
It's so unearned. And I think why we're struggling with this too is that because I was like, is this a metaphor for anything? Like it just felt so.
It's a metaphor, but I don't.
But is it a metaphor for like anything that makes sense given the movie?
Forgiveness, I guess.
But the movie isn't really about forgiveness at all. I mean, like, it's just vaguely part of the beginning, I guess, of the like Danny Glover stuff, like that the kid is bad, because like, but that stuff is all like resolved pretty early on in the movie.
Yeah.
And then there really isn't a lot after that that's about forgiveness, other than like them forgiving the KKK, which is not a good moral.
Right. The last scene, the church scene, honestly feels kind of theatrical, because I mean, this is a theater convention that's done a lot in shows. The cool thing about theater is you can have characters that have died come back on stage for a scene, and it makes sense because you're in a theater.
Movies and TV do that too.
Well, yeah, that's true. So it just felt really theatrical for a last scene.
Because it's like one space, and you're just, but it is also kind of, you're just doing a long tracking shot.
Mm-hmm.
And and you're supposed to, for a very long time, I'm like, oh, which one is this person? Which one is this person?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's acceptance, I guess, also.
acceptance,
But it's still crap. It's because what are you accepting?
Right.
Oh, that the Klan exists and that there's
Yeah.
racism in the world. Oh, okay, great. We're just gonna move on with our lives.
it's like, I
and
think
do
that's
nothing.
part of the problem, guys. I think that is, you're kind of actually pinpointing the problem. That's not
Yeah.
inspirational.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so I guess Moses moves on. Her husband is still dead. The person who shot him is still dead. And it's just Miss Spaulding, her kids, and Mr. Will, and they're just gonna get through. I guess I'm mad because there's so many loose ends that are left hanging.
Yeah.
And it's just, I feel angry because I spent 2 hours of my life for that ending.
Right. Well, it's just like so. Yeah, because I think part of it is you're like, what is this about? Why does this, like, I just do not think it even, it just doesn't even feel like it's in the right movie. Like, I don't know, even Treasure Blind ended the exact same way, and for some reason it just felt at least a little bit more like, yeah, we were coming, I mean, it was a Jesus
Right.
movie, so maybe that helped it a little bit to, like, end that way.
Right, but you know that, like, the father and the son have a cab company, and that's what they're going to do. And the...
Right, no, it is, like, much more, like, concise,
Right,
you know, wrapping
right.
it up, and it feels like it makes sense because the movie is like, that movie was going to, like, finding Jesus, and so this was kind of, and you had different characters where this was the focal point, coming together in a way that made logical sense, whereas this one,
yeah.
you're just like, why are they there? We've never seen this church before, like,
No,
we
that's-
don't know why
that's-
we're seeing it.
That's not true. We see the church multiple times.
Oh, is it like, when is it?
It's a focal point of the movie. We'll have there are scene transitions, and it's the church or the church bells or people pass by the church. This is
But do
also,
we see the interior at all?
Yeah, well, I think we see it one other time. Yes,
When?
at his funeral.
Oh, I forgot that the funeral is in
Yep,
the
it's
church.
in the church,
I thought it
because-
was one of the ones in the house. There's so many, like, gatherings at
Right,
houses.
because the food and stuff. No, because you see his funeral in the church, and then you see Roy's funeral, which is just kind of
Right,
outside.
which is outside.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
Roy's funeral, but because the church is just one of the many times where you just see a
Yeah.
room full of white people,
Yes,
like,
yes.
just mulling about.
Totally.
You're not really sure why you're there.
Yeah, but the church is a focal point for the town, basically.
Right. But it's so, I mean, like, my eyes were such that I truly just didn't understand where, like, it was only in the last scene that I had any context it was a church. Like, I did not realize we were ever in a church before
Gotcha,
that, other than,
gotcha.
like, yeah, the bells are ringing, but that's also, like, ambiance.
Sure, yeah.
You know, you don't, like, it's
Yeah.
like the call to prayer doesn't mean you've seen a mosque, like, you know.
You are correct. No, yeah. You're 100% correct. But yeah, I guess what I wanted is I wanted that scene, because you get the goodbye between Miss Spaulding and Moses, but you never. I wanted the scene. I guess I wanted to see him leave, but I don't know if that's what I wanted. I don't want this. It's the only thing I know for sure is I don't want this. I
Well,
don't want what we got.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, it's hard. I mean, I guess we can transition in this discussion into, like, what we would change about the movie. But, like, I think it is just that it's the combination of not knowing what it has to do with the rest of the movie, and also feeling like it's unearned, and there
Yeah,
are,
well,
like, those
yeah.
those loose ends.
Yeah, because we have the Klan stuff, and then he's like, I gotta go, bye. And then the movie just ends.
Yeah, it's also, like, it's a big swing that, like, it feels like it's setting a high bar, because that is such a cheesy, dumb ending that's kind of cliche, too, that you're kind of just like, you gotta really work to make this feel good, you know, to make
Yeah,
this feel
yeah.
right. Like, this is kind of not a good way to end a movie ever, and
Yeah.
so, like, you really have to prove to me that this is the right way to end this movie,
this
and
was-
they do not do that.
Right. This was a coda that neither of us really wanted. And I think what would have been better is if if we see a scene of Miss Spaulding sending Moses off, or something, and then
Yeah.
they have their cotton, they have their money, they save the farm, because I honestly forgot if they had saved the farm or not, because it's just not even talked about. It's like, oh yeah, we sold the cotton. Okay, next scene.
Right,
I'm
because
like,
they
wait
do
a minute,
like
wait a
the
minute.
American Dream plot entirely, but then at the end they don't even bother doing the full payoff of it. Which, like, I think for me at that point, I'm already like, yeah, I would just be going to a completely different locate. Like, the movie kind of veered into a direction I just never would have taken this movie if I was writing it, because once it starts being the American Dream being really the focal point, that's when I'm like, well, I wouldn't make a movie like that. So I think for me at that point, it was so far away from the thing that I would do that I was no longer able to be like, how would I end this movie? Because I'm like, why did we have the Ku Klux Klan at the very, like, there was just so many things at that point that had kind of racked up for me that I had kind of lost faith in it.
Yeah, the Klan came out of nowhere. I'm like, if you were going to do this, I needed you to do this much earlier,
right,
in the movie,
because you kind of like evoke things that you would assume the Klan was for. Like, we have a lynching, but like the Klan is not present for that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the words Ku Klux Klan are said anywhere in the film.
Are they not?
I don't
mean,
remember.
you have, like, when you have a Klan member in full garb, you're kind of, I feel like you don't even need to say it.
No. I mean, they appeared on the screen, and it's at night, and so it's stark.
God.
I mean, they look terrifying.
That was the one time I did make a very audible noise. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. Oh, me too. The absolute same, because I just knew, I was like, Moses is dead. They're going to beat the shit out of him, and they're going to hang him, and he's going to be dead. And that's not what happened. And I'm very much grateful that that's not what happened. I think it's awesome that Mr. Will came to his rescue.
Yeah. When he was going out, like, but way before we see the Klan, I was just like, why is he the one going out? Like, because the likelihood of it being like some racist... Like, the likelihood of him being the target of this attack is so high that I was just like, don't go outside in the dark.
Yeah, but you have to defend your family. These two men have worked together now for the entire summer.
No, I mean, like, the fact that he that Danny Glover, like, goes out because
I see.
John Malkovich just heard a sound.
I know. It's nighttime. You heard it. You've heard a sound. Like, you're not. I don't think he should dismiss Will, Mr. Will, and say, oh, whatever, that's nothing. But he went out alone, unarmed, at night in the South, and like, in the 1930s.
He's a black man. If anyone is like, I mean, we have a widow in the house that, like, no one's coming in the middle of the night to, like, beat up the widow. Like, that's not how power dynamics work. Like, even if she is, like, going to be mansplained when she tries to, like, figure out how to write a check, like, that's the kind of shit she deals with. It's like the black man who's gonna get, like, killed in the middle of the night.
I think this is when we have to call, like, screenwriter shenanigans. Like, this is just.
And they could have at least made a noise in the Foley. I was so mad about that.
Yes, please. Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, mostly I would excise the B plot, because it's just not worth anything.
Yeah, definitely take that out.
The sister maybe can have, like, 1 or 2 scenes or whatever, and then I don't care if we ever see her again.
Yeah, if she's in it, also give her. I mean, I think it's like the contrast that she has a husband, but like lean into that. Yeah. Like, lean into the fact that this is kind of what having a husband in this era looks like, and the affair really actually makes that more, like, muddies the water. Like, don't have him having an affair. Like, see her having problems that an affair doesn't really make that much sense to me. Like, you would want to see how a woman can still be subjugated with dealing with a husband, as opposed to just, like, an affair, which doesn't feel like, I don't know.
And I'm not saying that anyone in the B plot is a bad actor, because they're not. I mean, they have a really
they're fine,
very charged scene, where she has to confront him about the affair, and she slaps him, and I mean, it's all well done, and it's very believable.
Like the boring scenes of a different movie.
Yes, exactly. That's a very good way to put it. I don't want them there. We can just get rid of that.
Yeah, definitely.
that can go away. Yeah, it's
with Mr. Wilds. What do we want to change about his character?
I want more of him.
Yeah.
To be honest, I thought John Malkovich's performance was charming, and incredibly affable, and I enjoyed, even when he was yelling about the hooligans, I enjoyed spending time with him. And every time he was on screen, even for a moment, just seeing him like making a chair, or being in the kitchen, or just being capable and competent and knowing what he wants. And I very much enjoyed him.
Yeah, I think if all three of them had a little bit more kind of moments of like using the specific skills they had, being part of marginalized groups. Like, I feel like a lot of times what we were supposed to find which obviously inspirational, you already have a problem, but like, the thing that was exciting was like, oh look, it's like a black man who's acting like a white person, or, like that he's the one running the the cotton fields, and there's a woman who's like, she's the one who's working in the field and like running a business. It all felt very assimilation, like that they weren't ever using like the skills that they had being part of a marginalized group. It always felt like, look, they can also be part of like do the things that the people in power can do, as opposed to ever acknowledging that like maybe that's not the right thing to strive for. Maybe them having their own talents and using their own talents, as opposed to like us just kind of, I guess, and we also have to kind of take it on faith that they're like pretty good at doing the stuff that you wouldn't expect them to be good at doing. Like, you're just like, oh yes, she like picks cotton. You're like, wait, we don't like really get to see any sort of transition into her like being like overworked laborer. She just kind of has to. I don't know. It definitely romanticized like the oppression of capitalism, and that, I think, that is a problem.
Well, it kind of sort of almost, for me at least, romanticized the Depression just a little bit. I mean, there was
Hollywood does that.
There were multiple times in the movie I'm just like, wow, I really want to be in that kitchen. I want to live. I want to live on that farm. I want to eat her food. I want to hang out with Mr. Will and Moses and the kids, and I want to just be there. I cannot say that I want to pick cotton, because that's not like fun. I do not want to do that. But I mean, if I had to save the farm, you bet I'm going to get on my hands and knees and I'm going to pick some cotton. But
my back is hurting today, and I truly think just watching that movie hurt my back.
It was rough. Yeah. I mean, I guess that is another plus for the movie, is they don't make it look easy. It's rough. It's hard work. It's hours in the sun, with and if you were enslaved, no breaks. You were treated terribly. I mean, it's just, it's no one wants to be there.
It does make you think automation good.
Oh, I know.
Just a net positive in the world. So, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, at least, Mrs. Spaulding, I'm sure, I don't know if she took breaks, but I'm sure she probably offered people breaks. She fed everybody. They all had their own homes to go home to, or whatever.
Theoretically. Theoretically, I don't know. She's paying them. I mean, it's and part of it is, that is a plot point that she does need to pay them. It's part of it. It's just like, I think it's like trying to, I don't know, maybe it's like trying to skirt the stuff that we're talking about. Like, it just really does not want to deal with slavery as an idea, because that's going to really mess up the plot. Like, they have to like rework the plot if you really are thinking too hard about slavery. So it kind of is like it's always like a little bit to the side of thinking about slavery in reality. And then like the Ku Klux Klan, like, almost, it's not a Deus Ex Machina, because if you live in the world, you know that it exists, so it's not a Deus Ex Machina. But like it is sort of out of like left field in a way. Like, it doesn't feel totally earned, and it just kind of like, it feels like it also hits too many like Hollywood and kind of like American narrative things, but it doesn't always earn them either. So it kind of just like, I don't know, it is kind of forgettable. It does a good job of creating a period piece. I feel like that it does well. It's on film, so it just looks like it could be made any time.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that maybe my next step personally is you read movie reviews. I think I need to find movie reviews, but I need to find people of color talking about this movie.
There probably isn't any. It's the 80s, and most of the stuff were from when it came out.
Okay, well, we'll see. Maybe I can find something.
Maybe.
But yeah, I would be curious to know what a person of color would get out of this, or what they would think.
We need a
about it.
sister podcast that's just able people of color talking about the same movie.
Well, you know, those podcasts already exist. There's a bunch of really good ones.
It has
So
to just
maybe,
be the same movies that we're watching.
yeah.
though.
So maybe I should just write to them. I don't know. But,
I mean, this movie. I mean, I guess if you're being a completist of all movies with black characters, but that's a much longer running podcast than this one. There's a lot more of those than ones with blind characters. So it doesn't feel like a cornerstone movie. I mean, it is like an Oscar movie, so I feel like it probably comes up mostly in that context.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, and I can see why Sally Field won the Oscar. You know,
Yeah.
It's a really great performance. It's a really solid performance. She has to do a lot. And she
does. So does her character.
So does her character. And she makes it look effortless.
well,
You know, as far
except
as
for her
acting.
character.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about the acting.
No,
Yeah.
no, I'm saying the character doesn't, which is what we were saying before. Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem effortless.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. Yes. So yeah, I can absolutely see why she won the Oscar. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's just, it doesn't. I don't know how much authority I have on the situation to say, like, yeah, this movie's super problematic, or, you know, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's like, I also think, since it is Citizen White Cane, we should probably talk about how problematic the blind character is.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know how much what we would do to change him other than the stuff we've already said.
Yeah. He's there. Like, the character is there. He's not a, you know, I can't even say so much of a one-note character, because he
kind of just does one main
is.
thing.
He's there. I guess I would have liked to maybe known a little bit more about Mr. Will.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You could have introduced him a little bit earlier.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. I mean, I just really wanted to spend more time with him. It's like John Malkovich did all this work, you know,
Right.
and is doing all this really good work. And, you know, we don't see him very much.
I kind of also wish his character had been introduced in a different way, because it also, like, kind of goes into the blind or disabled, not stereotype, but like the disabled thing of just like a abled person is responsible for the disabled person, then the abled person is the one who makes the decision, and the disabled person is like very vocally like, this is not what I want, but like it
Right.
doesn't matter.
But the able person makes the decision because they don't want to deal with the disabled person.
Right.
They're just gonna it's
They're
her
just shoving
problem now.
Right.
Yeah.
Like they're
Yeah.
truly like a burden that you have
Right.
to just put onto someone, which is very problematic.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen maybe Mr. Will come to her of his own accord.
Yeah.
Even if it was his last resort, I would have preferred to see
Right.
him come, of his own free will by himself.
Yeah.
Also,
His will.
nobody sight guides properly in this movie, and it drove me crazy.
He also, I thought I've looked this up before. I thought canes were like the beginning of the 20th century. I thought they existed in the 30s.
Yeah, no, that was I forgot to mention that, and so I'm glad you did. Yeah, I don't think he uses a cane once.
No, he definitely does not use a cane
and
at
I'm
all.
just not
and doesn't make there's not any good reason for him not to use one.
right. And I get it, like not needing one inside the house because you eventually will learn what the house is.
Eventually, but you
that's
start out with it, and we
Right.
see how he obviously doesn't know what's going on in the house
because it's a
at the
big
beginning.
house.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of doors, there's lots of stairs. Yeah, so why wouldn't you be using a cane?
Yeah, like he has to go down up. Is it upstairs? I think at the beginning, like when we first meet him, they're going upstairs, which is just like, have a cane. It is very weird that he wouldn't have a cane. The only excuse would be if canes didn't exist, that would be an excuse. But then, like, I guess maybe in the mid-30s they were very uncommon amongst blind people. But
Maybe.
I mean, I don't know if that's true, and it also feels like, why? I mean, no one's gonna notice if that's
But then
technically. It feels more blatant that he's not
Yeah.
using a cane.
But then there were really nice touches, like the guide wires that you see everywhere.
Yeah.
On the farm. They're even stretched through the cotton field. Like there's all, so he can go anywhere he wants to
Right.
on the farm because there's guide wires. So I'm like, that's really cool. That's a very nice touch. I mean, if it weren't for the guide wires, Moses probably would have died in the barn.
How common are those in the real world? I feel like I always see them in media. The guide wires.
So when I went to blind summer camp,
That makes sense.
we had guide wires.
But
I mean,
that's like a
obviously 'cause it's
blind
summer
place.
camp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the idea that they would be in just like, well, first of all, public areas, just like, I don't know.
Oh, you
my
would-
experience
you-
of being a blind person in the
No,
world is
you would
not.
probably never see them in public
Yeah.
areas. I think they are strictly for, you'd see them more at places that deal with blind people.
Which
more.
that's. I mean, I'm not going to say that's useless, but it's also like they should be way more common than. Like, it should not be that you have to be in a. Because then it's just saying, like, well, you can only be in certain places. Like, which is not good. But. Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing. It's like if they're not very common, they're hard to depend on. And then I guess they're also like a cane does have certain things that the wires would not be able to do. Like that you
Right.
couldn't feel
A
like
cane-
something if someone left a toy in your way or
And
whatever.
You can take a cane anywhere. You can't take a guide wire.
Right,
anywhere.
exactly. It's just
Yeah.
so and that's why I think it's like I don't know, it just feels more like cinematic language than actual practicality.
That and outdated technology.
Maybe, but were they more? I mean, maybe
Maybe-
in a residence with a blind person, at least you
They-
can kind of argue that would
Yeah.
make sense.
Maybe they were more common back then. That's a good question. I'm not exactly sure of the answer.
Could have done research on that. Well, it will come up again, I'm sure. But yeah, so yeah, that's most of it. And want to do our blindness cutie test?
Ooh, big sigh. Yeah, no,
know.
it was hard. That's a hard one.
It's-
It's not an easy one to talk about.
Yeah, and it's also really hard to make better. I think we didn't really come up with a good thing because I don't really know. I don't know if there's an answer to that. It's too complicated to explain.
Yeah, I mean, because the movie really isn't. Which
not
again,
about him.
yeah, we don't really know going in. You know, I don't really read summaries, very detailed summaries
try to
of,
go
of
in.
movies.
No,
go in
I'm not
blind.
finishing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I killed it. I'm so sorry.
No, you're the one who said it. I totally was gonna say a completely different word that was totally not blind. Anyway,
Yeah. So
thanks
thanks
Samwise.
Samwise for agreeing with us. So yeah, I mean, my biggest fix is just I want more of John Malkovich,
Yeah.
which is not a bad problem to have.
Yep, that's
To
good.
be honest, yeah.
That's our consensus.
All right, you want to go first?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna give this movie 20/45.
Oh, okay.
I think like it's it has a blind character in it. And we see some like the KKK scene, even though very unbelievable that would deter them, is cute. Of like a blind person can hears voices, sounds like something else, but like it can tell the difference between or can identify someone by their voice, and like using those kinds of like, oh, blind people actually have other abilities that sighted people don't. That's cute. I mean, I guess that's kind of a small thing. I feel like I need to justify this because it is a little bit higher. But it wasn't like super offensive. I think part of it was I was going in knowing it was 84, so I was also assuming that the politics were going to be really problematic when you thought about them. So I think that helped me to come in thinking that was probably the case, and so the fact that was true I think would have tripped me up a lot more if I didn't start the movie thinking that. I wish he had been like come in with more agency, and I wanted him to at least have a little bit more of a cohesive like stuff that he was doing, and have like a more concrete understanding of what he could do, for not what he could do, but like because that makes it just seem like people have to earn, like family.
I think what you're looking for maybe is just a little bit more of a defined arc.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that definitely would make it a lot better. Yes, a defined arc, a defined like character almost. Like he has some attributes, but we don't get to fully see him in a completely three-dimensional way. But it didn't do anything like so egregious. We had a character goes blind but doesn't seem to care that they're blind. He seems very self-assured in his blindness, which maybe is probably why it's a little bit higher for me, because that stuff is always the most annoying to me. So I think it's not great. It's not getting super high marks, but it's also like it's not, and I'm not going to give it a 20/20 because I feel like the blind character, at least to some extent, in some scenes represents blind people in some way, even if the character taken as a whole is not like totally crystal clear, or not even clear, but just like feels great as a as a blind person. But yeah. So what is yours?
Yeah, I think I'm sitting at honestly 2045.
Nice.
Yeah.
Got synced up.
Yeah, because I pretty much I agree with everything you said. I wish there was more of Mr. Will. I wish he had a defined arc. I think that's
what you said technically, and I agree with that. But yes,
okay. yeah. But I agree with that, and I don't think I'd feel too bad showing this to someone who is visually impaired or blind, or I don't think the portrayal is offensive or setting us back steps as blind people. I think it's totally great.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of no, innocuous isn't the right word. My whole thing is falling apart.
No, I think innocuous is a good word. I mean, my word was just gonna be meh. Like it's kind of a shrug of a portrayal.
Cool. Yeah, because I don't like. But yeah, I think innocuous. Yeah. I mean, and I'm sure, having talked to Peter Capaldi about it, I'm sure John Malkovich worked very hard on this character, because he's just a serious actor. He loves the craft, and you can tell. I mean, this performance was very small, but every time Mr. Will was on screen, I was engaged. I wanted to know more about him. I just wish we could have known more about him.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I think 2045 is a perfectly good score. I'm wondering now though, I want to talk to my mom to see if she's seen this, because I'm sure she's seen this, but I'm wondering what she thinks.
Yeah, it's not like a movie you necessarily need to show to a sighted person to show the experience of being blind. I feel like it doesn't fully.
No. Yeah.
It's not worth the 2 hours for that.
No.
Yeah.
No, I definitely. This is not on the top of my list to show to a blind, visually impaired person either. About a really good portrayal. I think for an acting standpoint, if you really want to watch the acting, just cut the scenes with John Malkovich out and watch those.
That's even shorter movie than the director's cut we decided to do at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, if you just really want to, zero in on that, just watch those scenes. It's fine. But I mean, it's hard because on a whole, everybody does a really great job. The acting is wonderful in the film.
I think they also have good actors in general. Yeah, good performances, but yeah.
It's very engaging. Would I watch it again? I don't know.
Yeah, it's long.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oof. And with that tepid response,
I know both of us were like, yeah, well, okay,
it exists.
It's there. But next week, what we're doing is we are climbing the Mount Everest of blind movies.
Ooh.
we are doing the movie Blind Sight, which is a documentary about a bunch of blind people who climb Mount Everest and being extremely literal.
Yes, coming back in with the documentaries.
I know.
Oh, I'm excited. Oh my gosh. Okay.
So this, I mean, I can't imagine we'll have nothing to talk about. I feel like sometimes I say that, but this is one of those where you're like, yeah, it's going to be
This is great. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
true story about blind people, and we'll talk about inspiration porn. We'll talk about being a Tibetan teenager who's blind, because we know all about that. But yeah, it'll be fun. I'm excited. So it's
This
called
is exciting.
Blind Sight. You can rent it if you'd like to follow along, or buy it on Amazon Prime, and it does not appear to be really anywhere else that you can, like, when I looked on my app that tells me it's just Amazon. So I don't know, usually they have
Great.
like lots of different ways to buy it, but apparently it's just Amazon.
This one's not on Canopy?
No, it's just like, it's literally rent or buy on Amazon, which it was just weird because it wasn't even like on iTunes or anything else. Like, it's just Amazon. So
Gotcha.
I don't know, but it is available. You don't have to like buy a DVD from like someone in Japan or something. Which some of the movies I'm like, oh, we should do this movie, and I'm like, okay, so there is a Japanese DVD that's $30, and that is the only way to ever get this movie. I mean, I guess eventually we'll have to do that, but yeah,
We'll
but
get there.
This one's easier to find.
Cool.
But yeah, so that's Blind Sight. Another blind in the title movie. And then we have okay, so I feel like we need a name for this section at the end that we just stick with. This is what I was thinking. I don't know. I mean, it's that you get to decide half of it. But I one idea I had was a blind aside, just because it sounds fun to say. It does sound like the name of the movie, but that's just coincidental that we're doing next week.
I kind of liked Quarantine Corner.
But then that cannot last past the quarantine. It
No.
doesn't have sticking power.
No, that's true. In my brain, though, it's just like, wouldn't it be funny if we just called it Quarantine Corner and then just kept going on?
Just
No,
like
that's
years
cool.
and years later.
We're
We're stuck in 2020, which would be very ironic for this podcast.
Yeah. No, ugh. What about things we were blindsided by?
That works too. Yeah, blindsided by. I know. I was thinking the same pun. Took it in a different direction. But blindsided by. Yeah, we can do that.
Cool. What were we blindsided by this week?
Awesome. You go first.
Nice. Great. So what I've been blindsided by this week is I've been watching cartoons because I love cartoons. 32-year-old woman who still likes cartoons. And I finally caught up with this series, Infinity Train. And I know I recommended this to you
Off mic.
Yeah, a couple of weeks off mic before. But I finally actually sat down and watched it. And at first I kind of screwed up because I didn't realize what I was doing. And I watched the second season first.
Oh no.
Which actually was okay because the seasons are standalone for the most part. There are plot points that carry over from each season. The more you know about the train and the mythos of this world, the more rich of an experience you would have. But the seasons are super short. It's 10 episodes. Each episode's 11 minutes long. I mean, you can just devour these things. And it's really cool. And it's this third season especially, or books as they're referring to them, is especially emotional. And I definitely cried. But in a good way. And the show is dealing with loss and grief and problem solving. And I mean, basically, the main character of the show, Tulip, finds herself on the Infinity Train. When she's, it's this train that finds people that are just dealing with life issues, and you find yourself on the train, and then there are each character has a number on their hand, a glowing number, and the number goes down the more problems that you solve and the lessons that you learn, and then when your number gets to 0, you can get off the train. But we find that there are characters that have crazy high numbers, and will they or won't they get off the train?
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I think season 3 is probably the best written out of all of them so far, because now HBO has taken over the show from Cartoon Network, so they have a little bit more of a budget and a little bit more leeway as to what they can do.
Well, I feel like shows always get better with seasons because you like, especially when you have a fantasy world of some kind where you've already done a lot to establish the world, which is more boring.
Yeah, and the train itself, and the showrunners or the show writers have a lot to play around with because the train itself is so cool. Each car is its own little universe, and there are puzzles and things that you have to solve.
It's like escape room.
Yeah, basically to get to the other side to get the door open to the next car.
Nice. That is a
So-
lot like an escape room, that aspect of it.
Yeah, a little bit. Oh,
It sounds fun.
Some of the cars do feel like that. Yeah, but it's really great, and the voice cast is awesome, and the voice acting is really great. And Kate Mulgrew plays a character called the Cat, aka Kate Mulgrew, aka Captain Janeway from Voyager, from Star Trek Voyager. Which
Nice.
makes me happy.
And I know
anytime
so
get to
much
hear-
about Star Trek.
I know that I'm like that means nothing. to you. How about Red on Orange Is the New Black?
Yes, that means
Okay,
something.
there we go. She plays the cat,
Awesome.
and she's just anytime I can hear her speak is amazing. So
I don't know why I don't know her name.
Kate Mulgrew.
Awesome. That's very
Yeah,
fun.
and that's Infinity Train. You can purchase it wherever, but it's streaming on HBO Max right now.
Yay. Okay, so the one thing I did remember that why blind aside I thought might work better, because I forgot to say this, is that you could say you have like it works in that tense.
Oh, that is good too. Oh no.
Okay, so you could be blindsided by something and I can have a blind aside in this episode, and then off mic we can make a final decision. Do you want to do that?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So my blind aside is the podcast Decoder Ring.
Yes.
It's so good. It is one of my definitely comfort listening podcasts, but it is a podcast that is about cultural mysteries, where the host Willa Paskin goes and just looks at different art or they really run the gamut. There's one that's about hotel art, and there's one that's about truck nuts, and one about Chuck E. Cheese. So there, and that's just to name a very few of them. But they are just so fun, and they're true, actually. It's not news. It's kind of, I'm trying to think of the exact term, but it is the kind of 99% invisible, or
it's taking an aspect of pop culture, and this is what they say in the podcast, but taking an aspect of pop culture and just going on a really deep dive.
Right.
But it's completely random. Have you listened to the newest episode about mullets?
No. Okay, so
great.
I'm behind on all of my podcasts entirely. So I wish I was not. It would help also with recommending podcasts. I wasn't so behind.
I
on
mean,
everything.
their episode explaining the Sherlock fandom.
I was going to mention
so
that one.
Good. I think that's the best. That's the best one that they've done. So far.
It's a really
so
great one. It's I think it's the second episode. It's called the John Locke conspiracy.
Yep.
And it's just a fabulous episode about queer baiting and this thing that went down in the Sherlock fan fiction community, and that's a really great episode. The one that I did just hear, because I am behind on all my podcasts, is one of my favorite things in the world, which is Rebecca Black's Friday. And they go
that's a good episode too.
it's really sweet, and it is kind of, what's the right word? It is structured around an interview with Rebecca Black, and and it's just really cool because I have followed her work since Friday in the beginning, and I don't know, I always really loved Rebecca Black in more of a genuine way. I never thought it was fun to insult her. I just really appreciated
They
her.
treat her like a person
Yeah.
on the show, which is so nice. Because I'm like, that's the biggest thing, is people didn't treat her like a person when this whole thing was going on.
I loved Friday, and I feel like I was never really into the ridicule. I mean, I think there was always some people who just found it really fun and enjoyed it for its own sake, and then there was people who were just mean about it. But I don't know, I always enjoyed it, and it was really cool to kind of hear her perspective and get a lot of more context, because it was also something that I like knew half of it, because I really do care.
Oh my god, I didn't. I was truly blindsided by that interview. And it's just like, this is amazing.
Well, it was just
She
a
is
blind
so
aside
cool.
from me, because I knew all about it already. So, I love Rebecca Black. No, but it definitely vindicated my love of Rebecca Black, and I did also love, like, that she really did have a lot of, she's like the not retrospectiveness, but I feel like she had a lot of, I don't know, wisdom. I don't know what the right word would be, but like it's just about the whole experience, and like looking at it from a more, now a more detached place. But like, it just made me very happy.
And still being able to do a concert and play that song.
I
and
know,
now
and
people
she did a great
people
rendition of it.
unironically enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, because
Yes. And for the record, I mean, I don't unironically enjoy anything technically. Like, everything I enjoy is some level of irony, but I always truly loved Rebecca Black's Friday, and I also would play it every single Friday when I did summer camps with the kids, and I have missed that so much because I got laid off from that job, and I miss it all summer and every time it's Friday, I'm like, oh, it's Friday.
Oh, no.
But yeah, so that was also a good little bit of nostalgia for me.
That's wonderful.
So that's my recommendation. The podcast is called Decoder Ring. The episodes the Friday episode is called Gotta Get Down on Friday, I believe, and then there's also the other episode we're talking about is called the John Locke Conspiracy, but all the episodes are great, so go and listen to the whole catalog, because they're always fun and they're always interesting, and and always, even if you know a lot about something, because there have been quite a few episodes where I'm like, oh, I know a decent much about this, and I still have really enjoyed listening to them. They're still really engaging.
They will uncover something that you didn't know about that thing. It's amazingly well done, and it's really great for taking your mind off of the news. If you need something, just like, oh my god, okay, I get so excited when a new episode comes out, which
because they're monthly, so
you get it once a month, and you hope that it's long.
I know,
because sometimes they do the 20-minute ones once a month, and I'm like, really? That's not, they're good, but I'm like, that's not fair. I want an hour episode. Well, I mean, the Culture Gab Fest from Slate, they had to go to a bi-weekly schedule because of the pandemic, because there's just no money coming in. And the Waves podcast was shut down entirely, which was their feminism podcast. And that's not happening anymore.
Well, this is a good time to kill feminism, everyone. And on that note...
oh, my God.
I've got to end somewhere. But... yeah, I mean, we did all the things, though. So listen to Decoder Ring, watch Infinity Train. Those two are, like, sort of... I feel like ours are always kind of similar. Those, I mean, I don't know. I feel like those two are weirdly have just kind of they have a vibe in common. Anyway, our theme song is by Lucia Fasano. You can check out all the episodes with transcriptions on YouTube at Citizen White Cane Podcast. You can check us out on Twitter at White Cane Pod, on Instagram at Citizen White Cane, and on Facebook at Citizen White Cane. You can send us an email to citizenwhitecanepod@gmail.com, and if you would like to tell us if you listen to like books on record in the 30s, what else?
Do you have an impeccable set of bow ties like the ones John Malkovich wore in this movie? Those bow ties, though. Yes.
Did you use a cane at different times during the Depression? I don't know why mine are all very time specific. And what's your feeling on capitalism? Any of those questions, answering them, you can send that in a voice message. We have a link in the show notes, and just tell us what you think, and don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, and come back next week when we truly climb Mount Everest, that's what we're going to do on the podcast, just to compare notes. Or maybe just watch a movie about it called Blindside. But you got to tune in to see if we actually climb Mount Everest.
Will we do it?
You'll have to find out. Bye.
Bye.
Citizen Viking.
Poor Will here lost his sight in the big war. I believe it was the Battle of Somme, wasn't it, Will? He was a real war hero, weren't you, Will? Well, Will, he doesn't like to talk about these things too much. Do you, Will?
No.